Side 2 begins with the main thing. This is where it starts to get a bit more dancey and lively. Bryan Ferry's vocals and keyboards still remain just as mythical as with the rest of the album so far, a bit like something out of the Alan Parsons Project. The lyrics here are just as minuscule and few as the space between, more like a poem than an actual structure of verse and chorus lyrics. But as they say, less is more. Mentioning a few bits of simple imagery like a soul on fire and words of sand. Apparently souls are easily flammable and speeches are made out of tiny grain minerals. Those are just hard facts of science right there. Whatever this main thing might actually be, I'm not entirely sure. The song itself never seems to specify further, but I guess that was deliberate on the part of songwriting, letting the listeners figure it all out for themselves and letting their minds and imaginations fill in the various scattered blanks throughout. Next is Take a Chance With Me. Not Take a Chance On Me by ABBA. Totally different and totally better, objectively no less. Anyways, this continues on the exotic funky rock vibe with its music, while still maintaining a bit of that solemn sound at least. About a minute and a half into this 4 3/4 second track, does Bryan actually start singing. This time about how two can play, but he warns to keep that song away from him. Probably referring to that I'm a Gummy Bear song. I wouldn't blame him one bit if that were the case. I'd tell anyone to keep that away from me. It then goes on how too much love has left him in a state of sadness for so long, lost and alone through the night. He wishes for someone to take another chance with him, believing that love may just be the ultimate truth of life, and that people should learn to understand and maybe even appreciate the way he does, to understand the way he sees things in life. That's kind of what I like about the song in particular. Thematically, it's simple but also deep and thought-provoking, uplifting and enlightening in a way. It's almost like a deconstructive response to the aforementioned ABBA song while reconstructing it at the same time. Then we have To Turn You On. And given my previous episode, I have no doubt that someone out there would interpret this as drugs or something. Or sex. Musically, this soft rock song reminds me a bit of Fading Lights by Genesis, how it starts off with what sounds like a pumpy drum machine, then it builds up with some synth, guitars, bass, and possibly actual drums as well. Plus, this whole album itself already feels like a farewell anyway, so there's that too, I guess. This track seems to involve two people, both who imply to have suffered through isolation and alienation, and possibly even commitment issues as well, and that only are now meeting and hoping to open up to each other, to keep in touch and see the world together. He would do anything to turn on her mind, open up her heart like he has. Phil Manzanera's guitar solo really drives home here the feeling of yearning and opening up to one another. Alongside Paul Carrack's piano bits, it's a bittersweet solo for an equally bittersweet song. Afterwards is the penultimate song, True to Life. Yet another relaxing and underrated track that deserves a bit or even a lot more love. The music alone is just beautiful and wholesome. I don't even know if I could find any way to describe it through simple words. It's one of those tracks you just have to listen to in order to truly feel it. The lyrics themselves also carry a bittersweet theme, this time being about a man dreaming and imagining about a perfect woman, the Diamond Lady as he calls such. He must really like Steven Universe, or Land of the Lustrous. I hear that's a really good anime. But after spending so much time searching for such a real person in the city, he can never seem to find her, possibly and gradually coming to realize that, becoming aware that this dream person is just that, a product of his ideals and fantasies. The instruments do fantastically well in enhancing the bittersweetness of the content here, and insisting in making us sympathize with such a person. Since we all have our own ideas of what makes a perfect human, whether we're aware of it or not, even if such a figment isn't true or real, they somehow feel so to us. The need for an ideal companion, the ideal companion, which anyone can connect to in a way. And so our album ends with Tara. Another short instrumental track like India, this one being a slow, jazzy finale where the saxophone of Andy McKay really takes the spotlight and sends us off in a little swan song for the band. It does fittingly feel like the ending of not only a chapter, but the whole entire saga of Roxy music. And as the saxophone goes out, leaving the backing synth to play that final fulfilling chord, we hear the low sounds of crashing waters, likely to reflect the island motif of Avalon, and the end of King Arthur's journey to said island. Whatever the case may be, this might just be an underrated ending song to any album I've listened to so far. And so, that was Avalon by Roxy Music, and this album is pretty good. It has some very chill and sophisticated music, with still a bit of that funky popness to make it sound just appealing enough to mainstream listeners without losing its uniqueness or integrity. The first half was, shall I say, mostly slow and consistently solemn, while the second half kind of picks up things a bit by having somewhat of a lively feel with a few more beats and guitars. It became something of a sleeper hit for Roxy Music back in 1982, domestically and overseas, having not only stayed at number 1 in the UK album charts for 3 whole weeks, but also just stayed in the chart altogether for over a year. So in a way, it's a good enough send-off to Roxy Music. Since then, of course, there have been a couple of reunions every now and then, but talks of another new album have been somewhat vague and rumoured at best. Maybe someday we'll come about it from the blue from the near future. Maybe the Grand members will come back together for one last time for one last actual album. We'll just have to wait, honestly. But as is, really good album. Next time is the 75th episode of this show of ours. And I think we gotta look at something really special this time. So, it's going to be a Pink Floyd album. But not a well-known one. You could say it's quite obscured.